La emisión está comenzando. Todos los asistentes están en modo de solo escucha.
Hello everyone. So sorry for being late this morning or this afternoon. It is a pleasure to be connected today. My name is Diego Ochoa, Communication Specialist for the UNDP 6th National Report Project, and I will be your facilitator for this webinar today. Over the past 3 years, UNDP and NASA has worked together with top-tier researchers to generate new data on tropical forests that can be used by policymakers to meet their national needs. Working with 8 pilot countries, we have successfully tested the applicability of this spatial data. Now, in the project's final year, we are releasing this data to 21 additional countries with humid tropical forests. This webinar will highlight the importance of tropical forests for your biodiversity and climate goals and introduce you to the data and support you will receive as part of the NASA Forest Integrity Project. You will also have the chance to hear about how 2 of our pilot countries, Democratic Republic of Congo and Vietnam, have used product data. Finally, you will have a chance to ask UNDP and the science team questions. Welcome everybody. We are excited to have you join this important project. As usual, in our sessions, I would like to remind you all of certain rules and dynamics in these webinar sessions. First of all, microphones will be muted during the presentation. This reduces interferences and facilitates the communications. But please send us in advance your questions or raise your hand in the control panel of GoToWebinar. If you want to speak and the connections allow it, we will open your microphones during the Q&A sessions. As many of our participants are not English native speakers, myself included, I would like to remind our speakers the importance of talking slowly. This fosters the comprehension among our practitioners around the world. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the NBSAP Forum YouTube channel. We will also share the recording via email. Now, I would like to transfer the microphone to our first presenter, Christina Soppels, UNDP 6NR Project Manager, who will highlight the importance of tropical forests for biodiversity and climate goals and introduce how the NASA Forest Integrity Project can support your country to meet these goals. Chrissy will be presenting a presently jointly developed with Dr. Andrew Hansen, Director of the Landscape Biology Lab at Montana State University and the lead scientist on the project team. Andy is also here in this webinar and he will be available to answer any question you have during the Q&A session. So over to you, Chrissy, and welcome everybody.
Thank you so much, Diego. Could we please advance the slides? To one more. Okay, perfect. So good. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today. In this presentation, I'm going to give a quick introduction to why tropical forests are essential to biodiversity and climate change mitigation. I'll then give an overview of the NASA Forest Integrity Project, the data you can expect to receive from it, and the opportunities available for training on how to use it over the coming 6 months. I'll also introduce the decision support systems that we have available through this project to support your conservation planning work. And I'll conclude by introducing some of the virtual project team members that you can interact with. Next slide, please. So as you're all aware, we're witnessing an unraveling of the planet. So let's start with the bad news. No matter where we look, we're seeing challenges. Last year, a landmark report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change shows that we only have 10 years left to take action to keep the climate change to under 1.5 degrees Celsius. Just a few months ago, the equivalent report on biodiversity from the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services said that we're seeing an unprecedented decline in nature with over 1 million species at risk of extinction. These twin threats to the survival of life on Earth are increasingly recognized as deeply interconnected. For example, Unsustainable land use accounts for over 1.4 of greenhouse gas emissions. So what do we do? Next slide, please. Tropical forests are a key source of resilience. One powerful way to take action for nature, climate, and people is to invest in actions to conserve tropical forests. Tropical forest loss accounts for more than 90% of global deforestation and is equal to the total greenhouse gas emissions of the European Union. Investments in stopping deforestation in tropical countries comprise less than 1.5%, or only $3.2 billion US of the $256 billion US committed to multilateral institutions and developing country donors since 2010 to climate change mitigation. We need to change this norm and take action to preserve and restore key forest ecosystems in the tropics. Next slide, please. The good news is that we have in place an international policy framework through which all of your countries have agreed to take action on nature, climate, and sustainable development. This framework provides the political mandate for national action, and most countries have already taken steps to translate this into policy. We have the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. Next slide, please. The challenge we face is that the actions across the Rio Conventions are often fragmented and through different ministries or groups that are working on the same projects or similar ones, and they may not be aware of the synergies or interconnectedness between their work. We also see action on forests as a key entry point to help countries to deliver across these different targets and plans. But countries need the right data and to know who else is working on the projects, to know where and how to take action for preservation and restoration of key tropical forest habitats. Next slide, please. So with that introduction, I'll share a little bit more about the NASA Forest Integrity Project. It's the fundamental basis behind this project, and it's been ongoing since 2017. UNDP is working with NASA, world-class researchers, and you to use the power of spatial data and science to support conservation planning, monitoring, and reporting. In the remainder of this presentation, I'll introduce you to the NASA Forest Integrity Project before turning it over to our colleagues from DRC and Vietnam to share how they're already using the project data to support conservation planning and reporting in their countries. So the NASA project objectives were to develop high-quality data on forest condition, human pressure, forest integrity, and forest connectivity, to show how these data can be applied to support conservation decision-making, and last, to make the data available through user-friendly platforms. Next slide, please. And then one more after. Perfect. So you can see the 8 pilot countries in dark green that we've been working with over the past several years to develop the project data and then apply them. In addition, we're rolling the data out now to an additional 21 countries that are highlighted in light green, including you. And we're really excited to work with you to use and apply these data in the coming months. Next slide, please. We're releasing several key data products that include forest condition, the human footprint, forest structural condition index, the forest integrity index, forest fragmentation and connectivity, and data on the impact of forest integrity on key species. These 6 key data sets are free, completed, and available for your use. The 2 additional will be available in the next 6 months. So let's talk about what these data include. Next slide, please. The first is forest condition. So for forest condition, Matt Hansen is generating data on forest canopy cover, time since disturbance, and canopy height. We're aware that your countries have nationally produced maps of forest cover, and you can also work with these data as an alternative or compare the 2. It includes canopy cover in 2000 and 2010, time since disturbance between 2000 and 2017, and canopy height in 1986, 2001, and 2016. Next slide, please. The second data set is on the human footprint. This is produced by Oscar Venter and James Watson, And through this project, they have developed global human footprint maps for the years 2000 and 2013, and are working with countries to create national human footprint maps as well. Next slide, please. Forest Structural Condition Index can help you identify undisturbed areas that have high stature and cover. And then lower forest structural condition index values indicate areas that are low in stature or recently disturbed. Forests with high structural conditions support levels of biodiversity and ecosystem services that are high, and this would be important to take into consideration when you're doing conservation planning exercises. Next slide, please. The fourth data layer is the Forest Integrity Index. It combines maps of the forest structural condition with the human footprint to derive what we call forest integrity, and that can help you to identify the best of the last forest with high conservation value as well. Next slide, please. The fifth data layer that we're making available to you was developed by Scott Goetz and Patrick Jantz, and it quantifies fragmentation and connectivity of high integrity forest areas. It can help you identify isolated patches, core areas of connectivity, and edge forest, among other things. The sixth data layer looks at the forest integrity on key species ranges. The goal is to evaluate biodiversity responses to forest connectivity and integrity. We just want to emphasize that these data sets are produced by this Forest Integrity Project and that they're all available for you to use. And you can also consult with our team on how to identify opportunities to apply them in your country. We're happy to answer any questions you have and help you figure out how they could be most useful to you. Next slide, please. So how can you use these maps for action? You can use them to help monitor changes in your country's forest over time. You can use them to identify the last of the wild forest likely to support high biodiversity and ecosystem services in your country. You can use them to identify critical forests for connectivity and also to focus your restoration and protection efforts. Next slide, please. We want to be able to support you to use these data to examine, how to more effectively implement your various international commitments. So we've made all of the data for this project available through a decision support system. Next slide, please, called the UN Biodiversity Lab. Some of you may already be familiar with the UN Biodiversity Lab, which is our official decision support system for the NASA Forest Integrity Project. We created the UN Biodiversity Lab in 2018 to support countries to deliver on their commitments to the CBD. It provides a range of data and analytical tools to support governments to access and use spatial data from these NASA projects and other key sources. It does not require GIS expertise. And we have access to 137 governments, and when you log on, you can obtain 100 global spatial data layers and tools. You can also upload your own national data sets. Next slide, please. So the UN Biodiversity Lab has 5 key features. First, it provides access to over 100 global data layers on biodiversity, protected areas, and sustainable development, including the data shared through this project. Second, it contains 18 draft biodiversity status maps on the Aichi biodiversity targets. Third, each country has access to a private workspace where they can upload national data. And then fourth, you can analyze them in combination with the global data layers available on the site. And finally, you can use the platform to create story maps to communicate your conservation success. Next slide. We also want to note that your countries have access to a national level platform. We also want to note that you likely have national platforms, and if it's helpful, we can also make the project data available that way. For example, in Colombia, project data is being made available through the BioTablero platform for both research and policymakers. I also wanted to briefly share what the draft maps look like for your country. We'll run through an example with one of our pilot countries, DRC, and we wanted to let you know that you'll also receive draft versions of these maps to begin to review and consider how you could work with following this webinar. So the first is forest condition or canopy cover. Here's a look at canopy height, time since disturbance, the human footprint, the forest structure condition index, the forest integrity index, forest fragmentation, different levels. And then to wrap up my presentation, I just want to touch on some upcoming opportunities we have and introduce our project team. So first, we'll have several upcoming events and opportunities to help build your awareness about these data sets and your capacity to use them. So this month, we'll be sending out the draft forest integrity project maps for you to review and open up a dialogue with us. In November, we'll have an in-person training at SUBSA on the use of these maps. In January, we'll be hosting some webinars on the methods and applications for using the tropical forest data in your country. And then throughout this whole time period and through next year, you could receive ongoing support from our project team on how to use these resources. Last, I just wanted to show you the basis behind this project. So first, we have the science team. We have Andy Hansen from Montana State University. Cindy Schmidt is the NASA project manager. Matt Hansen of the University of Maryland produces the data around forest condition. As I mentioned, Scott Gutz and Patrick Jantz from Northern Arizona University are creating analysis around forest connectivity and fragmentation. And James Watson from the University of Queensland and Oscar Venter from the University of Northern British Columbia are working on the human footprints maps. From the UNDP Nature for Development team, you may see some familiar faces. We have Dr. Jamison Irvin leading the project. Myself, Christina Supples, I manage UNDP's biodiversity planning and reporting work. Annie Verning coordinates our UN Biodiversity Lab. Scott Atkinson is our spatial planner. Diego Ochoa is our comms professional. Marigo and Prudence Rain are technical specialists supporting the team. Don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions that you have. Last, I just wanted to share a list of participating countries. The pilot countries are highlighted in green. We had Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, DR Congo, Ecuador, Indonesia, Peru, and Vietnam. And then the additional 21 countries highlighted in white also have high tropical forest cover, and we look forward to working with you to apply the results of these data sets to do your conservation work better. Through this project, we're working to bring together relevant actors across your countries who are working around the Rio Conventions and for whom forest data would be useful to implement their commitments. Just wanted to let you know that we need your help to reach the right people. So we've used our networks to help identify you and some other key focal points, but we know that you're the best source of other information on how these data sets can be applied and who should be receiving them. So please open up some communication with us to let us know who else we should be in touch with on the project. With that, I just wanted to say thank you and pass the microphone back to Diego.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Chrissy. I just wanted to say everybody that we will have the opportunity to share your questions during the Q&A session. So I would like now to turn over to our colleague Tung Dao. Tung is a medical doctor graduated from the Hanoi Medical University. He also holds a Master of Science degree in International Health Policies and Management granted from the Brandeis University in Massachusetts. Dr. Tung Dao has a solid work experience and expertise in overseeing development programs at international and national levels. He used to work for NGOs in Vietnam as a project development officer before joining the UN system. He served under UNFPA in Vietnam as a program analyst to provide technical support to the country in the areas of reproductive health, adolescent reproductive health, HIV, and program management. He also worked as an international evaluator to conduct a final evaluation of UNFPA's country program in Timor-Leste before joining UNDP in late 2013. Working for UNDP Vietnam, Dr. Tung Dao is in charge of two portfolios, including biodiversity and environmental health. He's providing technical advice and managerial works to overseeing interventions and projects that UNDP Vietnam is supporting the health and environmental sectors. Today, Tom will present on how the Vietnam has used NASA Forest Integrity Project data in the country. Thank you, Dr. Tong, and welcome to this webinar. Exactly.
Thank you, Diego, for a long introduction about myself, and you surprised people that, okay, there is a medical doctor talking about biodiversity. But
before you start, sorry for interrupting, Dr. Tong, can you put your presentation in full screen mode?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to do that. And that's why, together with me here today, we're welcoming Mr. Tong, a new program officer who's going to be in charge of biodiversity.
Hi, everyone.
And further on, you're going to be working with Mr. Tong, much more than working with me. But because I've been in charge of this NR6 project, so I'm going to deliver this presentation to share with you some information about what we are, how we have been using Forest Integrity Project in Vietnam NR6. My presentation, I'm going to talk about like the national context when we conduct this NR6 report and how we use FIP data from the UN Biodiversity Lab to illustrate for illustration and for analysis in the NR6 report. And I'm going to share a little bit about obstacles and challenges that we faced during the project and potential plan in the future. First, as you have been aware that Vietnam has joined United Nations Convention on Biodiversity since 1994, and our Prime Minister approved the National Biodiversity Strategy, which is then BSAP in 2010 with the vision to 2020. This is the third national biodiversity strategic and action plan of Vietnam. In 2018, Vietnam was working on development of the NR6 report on biodiversity to the CBD, addressing global IG target set under the strategic plan for biodiversity to report to the CBD. In previous report, which is the national report number 5, we have less illustration through biodiversity maps and less data for analysis, but that's why in this 6th national report we are involved in this support of the NASA project. And the 6th report our 6th national report follows strictly the guidelines of for the national reporting according to CBD regulation. Sorry. While developing this national report, several organizations were involved, including UNDP Vietnam through the global project, Biodiversity Conservation Agency of the MONRE, which is Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Vietnam, a team of local consultants, including 5 consultants, and on 5 areas that we identified to report to the in the national report, and other sectors such as Ministry of Agriculture and provincial authorities were also involved in development of this national report, and other agencies as well. Regarding, how can I move this? Sorry, because it's interrupt my screen. Regarding Okay, there we go. During this during the development of the National 6 report, using data from the national sources and from spatial data as well, we got some challenges. First, in country, you know that in Vietnam, the biodiversity data are scattered and managed by different agencies, including the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. And the data varies from those sources that they are not consistent and they are not alike. So those are that is what the first difficulty we faced in using national data for NS6 development. And the second thing, the second challenge is about spatial data. We have diverse spatial data, including many different fields. But unfortunately, the data were not archived and backed up regularly and managed by a central agency. So, and also we lack a map, specialized maps on national scale, and for development of this 6th report. Sorry. Okay, so in that context, there are some action we have taken, and we propose some solution. I mean, we take we came up with some solution for improving the national report. First, at the national level, there is a national coordination team established under the decision of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, involving people from different agencies. So those agencies will be connected for data collection from one focal point. For instance, in March, they assign one focal point who is responsible for data collection from the agricultural sector, and likewise for the environment sector. Those people are collecting data from different agencies and from national institutes, and they need to work on the data to come up with a common set of biodiversity data. Luckily we were involved in this NASA project, so we become a member of Biodiversity Lab, where spatial data and ground data were uploaded and shared for using. So, and also we get technical support from experts that you've just heard from Christian to help us analyze data and also develop biodiversity map for illustration in the national report. So based on those establishment and sources of data, we conduct series of workshops to consult with national authorities and also those who are working on biodiversity at the grassroots level. Representatives from different agencies who are in charge in charge of some part of biodiversity conservation in Vietnam, and the team, the consultancy team that we recruited, also had meetings with those stakeholders to clarify and verify data, and then to figure out how to process data in a relevant way for the national report. So for about using forest integrated data for NS6, you know that we've collected more than 40 biodiversity maps from the UN lab UN Biodiversity Lab portal, such as including like forest vegetation, forest coverage, climate and carbon and land use, and so on. So we collected more than 40 maps for reporting about like 12 main related Aichi targets and other Aichi biodiversity targets. Two major indicators we use FIP data in the NS6 include forest coverage, forest cover loss, and human footprint. So here's an example of the maps we use FIP data to create with support from technical team, global technical team, and you can see on the screen. This is a forest cover and forest loss over the year of 2017, and we highlight it. And this is a forest cover loss for the period from 2000 to 2017. So we compare and see a difference. Of course, when using spatial data for forest integrity, we face some obstacles and challenges. First is that spatial data set from UN Biodiversity Lab is large, and it is provided on a global scale. So some layer had a low resolution, and some cannot be like downloaded in the right format that we wanted. We have to download the map and data in a format of JPEG or PDF, which is very limited in resolution. The second challenge is that the forest integrated data in Vietnam are not in the same classification system. Therefore, data used in NS6 are only for illustration. You know that spatial data is very crucial, very valuable for any country. But there are also national data collected on the ground, and data collected on the ground is considered more officially by the national authorities. So when we bring in spatial data, we need to verify, we need to compare between the two sources of data to see if they are the same, or if they are alike, or if they are different. In case it is different, we had to choose between the spatial data or national data. And luckily, the UN Biodiversity Lab allow us to use to select one of the resources as decided by the national authorities. Also the coordination between organizations in country, between the sectors, and between institutions in the country for verifying the FIP data provided by UN Biodiversity Lab was still very weak, still weak in Vietnam. So so that is a challenges that we had. Here are some results we achieved through the NS6. Firstly, spatial data collected by UN Biodiversity Lab, include 24 maps, which is about like 40 up to half of the total map used in our NS6. And through Christina and through the team, they assessed that the improvement of our national report is significant for this year. The second thing is we had a great technical support from the global team in illustrating in illustration of the national data into the NS6, meaning that we upload the national data to the portal, and the global team use that data to those data to help us to create illustration through the map, and also to help us to do data analysis. So we had opportunities to improve biodiversity maps a lot in the 6th national report. The data, FIP data, was used in section 4, IG target 5, habitat loss, and also the maps. We use map to show forest cover loss in Vietnam for the period from 2000 to 2017. So those are major improvement and major use of spatial data, FIP data in Vietnam for the NS6. So I would like to express our sincere thanks to the global team and to NASA project that help us improve our national report number 6 pretty much. And now we are not only for that report, but also we have reference data, and also we have illustration maps for other purposes. For instance, recently we are also implementing another project supported by UKSA to provide spatial data for dengue early warning system. And in that project, we also have to create some maps. So the maps we create under this project can be applied for that project, because another thing is that while creating the map, we had to clarify with the national authorities. We had to make the maps in line with UN protocol on standard maps and so on, to avoid possible trouble problems on like conflicting between the two countries. So the maps we create under this project can be like used for other similar project, and this is a very added value that the project can support us. In the future, we are thinking about 2 major plans. First thing is that we continue to collaborate with UN Biodiversity Lab technical team to use and extract spatial data for other report and other purposes, for maybe for planning, and maybe for programming, and maybe for policy advocacy and so on. And the second major plan is we will work in cooperation with local local authorities here in Vietnam to use these data on FIP in the future action program of the national strategies or national intervention. So that is it, my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dao, for your presentation. As I told before, we will have a Q&A session for questions for Dr. Yang from Vietnam. I would like now to turn over to our colleague Guy Mangoni, National Expert in Management Strategies and Sustainable Financing of Protected Areas of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Guy works for the GEF UNDP Regional Project on Sustainable Financing of Congo Basin Protected Area System. In the past, he worked as OSFAC Executive Coordinator and member of Board of Directors until 2011, and acted to develop national DRC, a regional Congo Basin forest geomatics issues. Before joining UNDP, he worked as conservation technical expert for the biodiversity and forest program of the German Corporation in DRC, and technical officer for a World Bank support project with the DRC Protected Areas National Authority. He holds a BSc degree in agronomy from the University of Kinshasa. Today, he will present on how the Democratic Republic of the Congo has used NASA Forest Integrity Project data. Welcome, and the floor is yours. It is important that you unmute yourself from your device. So go to the microphone icon and exactly. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Bonjour.
Oui, on t'entend, Guigui. Du coup, tu peux faire la présentation en anglais.
Ok, d'accord, ça va. Je vais prendre la version anglaise.
I'm gonna project your presentation, okay? Diego, can you make me presenter, please?
Sure, hold on.
There we go. Guigui, quand tu veux passer à la prochaine slide, tu me dis.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'll present the NASA, the using of spatial data to safeguard forests and ecosystem, the case study using spatial data from NASA FIP project in DRC. Next slide. First, national context of the project. The DRC is the only African country among the 17 mega biodiversity countries in the world. It is a home of to endemic species such as okapi, gawa, gorilla, bonobo, and Congolese peacock. It has nearly 155 million hectares of vegetation cover, about 47% of the tropical forest area of the African continent, and 6% of the world's tropical reserves. Guarantor of the Congo Basin forest, the second largest forest in the world after the Amazon, the government through the Ministry of Environment and the ICCN, which is the Protected Area Management Authority, supported by partners, works to prevent the degradation of the country's forest cover and to contain the erosion of its rich biodiversity. To this end, several national institutions use satellite image, like the Ministry of Environment, like the Inventory and Forest Management Department and the Sustainable Development Department, for the Ministry of Environment, and the ICCN, the Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature. So we want to remember something. Spatial data can be used as powerful tools for making feasible decisions that protect human livelihoods and conserve essential biodiversity. Despite this potential, countries do not use data to inform their conservation decisions. So national policymakers do not have access to make informed decisions about conservation and development planning. The goal of the NASA FIP project is to provide each country with exploitable spatial data for making conservation decisions. And the project will serve as a vehicle to accelerate the use of spatial data to achieve the Aichi biodiversity target and nature-based sustainable development goals. So the project focuses on 8 country pilots, and I represent the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. We have 5 data generated by the project: human footprint, forest condition, forest structural condition index, and forest fragmentation and connectivity. So, how were data generated by the NASA project used in the case of the DRC? A concrete example is the illustration in and for the development of the 6th DRC National Report to the Convention on Biological Diversity. Data layer used in DRC, human footprint, and then we have the map of footprint in Democratic Republic of Congo. This map indicates the increasing number of roads that are being built in the Congolese rainforest, which lead to level fragmentation of the forest. The roads are cutting across the forest patch. This map shows the impact of human activity and provides guidance on the direction of various conservation planning efforts to be provided by the government and other stakeholders. Second, data layers, forest condition. Here we have the map of the lot forest on cover.
Guigui, vous m'entendez toujours ou pas? Parce qu'on ne vous entend plus. Diego, do you hear him? Or is it just me?
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you repeat it, please?
Can you hear Guigui speaking?
Collected since 2000.
Sorry, Gigi. Continue, please.
Are you on me?
Yeah, yes. Please continue.
Okay. They have been collected since 2000 and are to date an invaluable source of information on loss and forest cover gained over the time. Tools in the 6th national report of DRC to the CDB, where it is mentioned, it is noted that the assessment of the forest cover between 1990, the reference year, and 2010 give an annual rate of deforestation of about 2.5%. This rate is low at the national level, but it is much higher in areas with high population density, particularly near cities where forests have disappeared within a radius of more than 150 kilometers. In other data, used forest fragmentation. The map shows the level and the type of fragmentation in DRC. The area in green show the core fragment, and the area in purple and orange are the area of connectivity between forest patches. National policy focusing on reducing the level of fragmentation also allow greater movement of the species within the environment. It ensures connectivity among population of threatened species and maintain genetic diversity, as well as allow movement for species due to climate change. The creation of corridors that connect patches should allow the government to better protect biodiversity. So, how's the data generated by the NASA project being reinforced by national data? By comparing with some field data, albeit insufficient, both at the level of protected area and outside under the various reports such as those of the DIAF, the Inventory and Forest Management Department, the ICCN and other partners working in the sector like OSFAC, WWF, WCS, etc. So, the difficulty and perspective. The difficulty in using the data is that we have low access to the internet for the acquisition of this data, a low capacity of actors to be able to use this data when those data are available. The difficulty also in validation at national level. But what can be the perspective? The perspective is to establish in an imminent manner a platform for dialogue and exchange with all biodiversity stakeholders in order to promote the use and the consideration of this data for planning and development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaga, for your presentation, and thank you also, Dr. Tung, for the presentation. I would like also to open now the floor for questions for our participants. For doing that, you can see in your GoToWebinar control panel, you can raise your hand or send your question through the questions tab in this control panel. So please feel free to open, and I would also like to ask our participants to stay for 10 minutes more because we started a little late. So I just open the floor for questions. I would also like to remind you that Andy Hansen is here from the science team. If you have, more technical questions around this topic. Okay, I just want to remind everybody that you can just send your questions or raise your hand. We have some few minutes before our webinar finishes, and it's a great opportunity to clarify your questions and doubts related to the project or related to the development on the country that you are representing.
I also want to add that we have Andrew Henson on the line with us. If you have questions directly for the science team, it's not just the global support team. We also have the scientists with us.
Maybe can I have a question? I didn't see my hand raising button, but I just talk.
Sure.
For the data, what's that? Technical question for the team. That I mean, furthermore, if there is a project that use spatial data to inform the countries, especially growing, developing country, about like for investment projects. For instance, you can inform them about land degradation area and land use for agriculture and for forestation and so on. So we can inform the government that where the land is degrading, where the land is has already been degraded, so that they can locate relevant projects to different areas of land. For instance, for degraded land, they can allocate a project, for instance, like solar battery, solar energy, solar power in that area, instead of like in the areas where the land is of good quality or the forest is developing. Likewise, for economic development, for coastal economic development, you can inform the government where to allocate coastal economic zone, where to reserve for biodiversity conservation.
I'm going to open microphone of Andrew Hansen. Andrew, can you hear us?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for the question. I do think that the data layers from this project are relevant to your issues regarding land valuation and prioritizing land for biodiversity and for energy development. I think it might be best if you try to work with us and the team, and we could offer some suggestions perhaps on how to use the data for this purpose. We don't have a forest degradation layer per se, but between good data on land use type and intensity and the forest data sets that we've seen in this presentation, I think they could be informative relative to the planning that you're doing. So I'd be happy to follow up via email or telephone conversation, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a question here. I'm going to read it. It's a question from Monique Aculo. Hello, Diego and team. Thank you all the presenters. My name is Monique Aculo from Nema, Uganda. Is it possible to use this information to develop new project? Secondly, Christina wanted to get this information shared with other stakeholders in Uganda. Please send this information to the Executive Director of National Forestry Authority, Mr. Tom Okello, and she provided his email. The NFA needs this information to guide some of our works. So yeah, for sure, we can just share this information. And who wants to answer the question related to use this information to develop new projects? Chrissy, can you hear us?
Yes, do you want me to take the question? I was thinking Andy might.
No, sorry. She's asking if it's possible to use this information to develop new project. I'm not sure if Chrissy or Andy can just answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these data are a great foundation to make the case for necessary GEF projects. I think they can be foundational and you're thinking about proceeding towards the post-2020 CBD Global Biodiversity Framework. They're foundational for monitoring and reporting as well. We think they can be very helpful in helping you think through scenarios around the most impactful conservation strategies you could develop that could help you achieve not only the CBD, but other MEAs and the SDGs. And we're delighted to support you throughout the rest of the 6NR project while we have this team to help you think through those applications.
Thank you very much, Chrissy, and thank you very much, Andy, and also our speakers. Our time is over. Thank you to all of you who have joined us for this session today. We will post this webinar recording on the NBSAF Forum YouTube channel and all of these presentations on the NBSAF Forum. I just want to invite you all to discuss and comment in the NBSAF Forum related to this project and the deliveries. You will also receive an email with these links to the recording and presentation, so feel free to share your thoughts on it. We hope all of you enjoyed this webinar today. Please have a nice day or evening, and we look forward to your active engagement on through this NASA Forest Integrity Project. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gagai. Thank you, Dr. Tung Dao, and thank you all the presenters and participants today. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in other sessions. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.